What has helped me really is learning the art of effective delegation.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast. I'm your host today. My name is Brett Gilliland. Me and my team are privileged to host these podcasts on a regular basis. We always have fascinating guests, amazing entrepreneurs, amazing business owners who've gotten something off the ground. It's starting to work. They are getting and serving clients and customers, and it's starting to get a little bit more complex, and they're here sharing some of their real lessons learned, and they're here sharing some of their real challenges. And it's a pleasure to have these guests. They're amazing people. So let me introduce you to today's guest. Today I have Yash Chavan with me. His business is called Saral, and they have this really cool platform that helps. It's like an affiliate marketing platform, but specific to the influencer space. So they help you get with the right influencers, manage all those relationships, and track all the business that's coming from those influencers, so you can pay those influencers appropriately. Really cool stuff that they're doing. Welcome to the show, Yash. I'm glad to have you here.
Thanks, Brett. Excited to be here and share my story and with everybody else. So, yeah.
Okay, well, I gave a little bit of an introduction, but let's do it justice. Please tell our listeners, tell our audience a little bit more about Saral, what you're trying to do with it, the types of businesses you serve, as context, and then we'll jump into the episode.
Yep, amazing. So, hi everyone. My name is Yash. I'm the founder at Saral. Basically, what Saral does is, if you've ever seen an influencer promote anything on social media, we are the back end that operates all of that. So, what goes into making that collaboration between a brand and an influencer happen? There's a bunch of steps, like Brett mentioned. There's finding the influencer, contacting them, sending them a contract, paying them out, tracking the sales that come through them, and also like paying any commissions if that's part of the process, and so on. So Saral is the back end operating system that helps power all of these relationships across hundreds of creators for brands. And we mostly work with e-commerce brands. So we would work with, let's say, a supplements company or a beauty brand, for example, and we would help them collaborate with hundreds and hundreds of influencers. So far, we have about 23,000 influencers that are actively working with about 200 brands on the platform. So yeah, those are some numbers for you, and that's what we do.
Yeah, so cool. It's fascinating what can be done with technology to take a bunch of complexity and bring it all together into a user experience that enables all the value that is needed. So, well done on that. Let's jump into some of the lessons that you've learned personally as a business owner, as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as you've been making that transition from scrappy, gritty founder to more capable and confident business builder. So, if you think about those transitions, we don't need to go all the way back to the beginning. Probably more recent. You've got more than 10 team members. Your revenue's starting to grow. um, what has been influential for you personally that's been beneficial in your development as a leader, as an owner, as part of creating something? What has helped you that might help other business owners?
Yeah, so I think what has helped me really is learning the art of effective delegation. And I'm still, it's not, I'm not over that hill yet. I think it's always going to be a constant learning process. But I was super bad at delegating. Like, if I think maybe a year ago, I was really bad at it. I just wanted to do everything on my own. I was like that guy who was just like, I'm going to do it. I'm this force of nature. I'm going to work 25 hours a day. I'm going to get it done. But then obviously there's limits to that, right? So there's, you can't do enough, your health starts declining, you feel a little bit burned out, you're like, I created this thing, I love this thing, this is my business. But you start something. Usually business owners would it's like your baby almost, right? So it's like you love it, but it's like you also begin to hate it somehow, because you're like, I'm doing all of this, I'm doing admin, I'm doing finance, I'm doing customer support, I'm like, how do I delegate? And then the solution to all of that is delegation. The problem, I think, what happened with me was, you would delegate and then you wouldn't delegate it the right way. So you would hire someone, maybe they're not the right person for the role, or maybe even they are, but you're not setting the right expectations. you're not tell you're just maybe saying, hey, just get this done, versus maybe they need a little bit more direction. So being more nuanced about how I delegate first, I guess step number one, learn to delegate. If you're in that spot where I was, where you're just trying to do everything because you think you're the best person in the whole wide world for every single thing in your business, which is not true. But if you think that, learn to delegate. Start with some of the small, maybe non-consequential things. If you're getting, like your email, for example, could be delegated. First thing you should probably delegate is your email, and then learn the art of effective delegation, which is what I've been constantly working on. So yeah, that's the
Yeah,
quick.
that is so powerful, Yash. It won't surprise you, I don't think. I don't think it'll surprise you to learn that many of our guests on this podcast point to this thing, right? They're like, because it's so universal. The reality is that force of nature feeling that you described, like I am the force of nature. I'm going to go do it. That is so common amongst us as business owners because that's what it requires to get something off the ground. It's like I have to get this thing off the ground, and so you make it happen by will and just grit and tenacity, determination. So you do all those things, but then that's not the behavior. That's not the how to channel your energy to continue to scale. And so you got to figure out how to make this adjustment to delegating. So you put your finger right on an issue that is common to most of us. Um, I think it might be helpful, and not just name that. Hey, it's delegating. Get better at delegating, everybody. Let's click down on that just one more level while we have you, Yash, and just say this particular thing helped me the most with delegating, or here's where I would trip up, and here's what I'm working on, or any more like practical or next level detail you could provide on how to delegate effectively would be useful to some, probably
Yep.
many.
Yeah. um I think fun, if I just think about it, right? Fun, there's many tactics, right, that you could read books and so on, but I think fundamentally just boils down to what I've learned, at least, is that boils down to setting the right expectations. Because I think, okay, so let's define bad delegation, right? So because I think we need to understand the
Yeah,
problem,
sometimes that's
um,
helpful, right? what
right?
what does
So
not good look like?
correct. Inversion, like Charlie Munger said, tell me where I'm going to die so I don't go there. Right?
Yeah,
So, bad delegation is you you think you're communicating the task or the project well enough, but you're actually not. And the person that you are delegating to thinks that they understand what what a definition of done is, but they don't actually understand. So there is, it actually goes both ways. So I mean, yes, you are to blame, but it's sometimes also the person who's not receptive enough, or you haven't asked them, like, hey, did you actually understand what needs to be done? So, like, if I were to maybe boil it down to just two things, it's get better at communicating your ideas correctly, or your projects in a more fleshed out manner, and ensure that the other person, so most people would delegate, like, hey, here's the thing, go do it, here are the standards that you need to meet, go do it, right? But you never ask the recipient whether they've actually understood. So one of the things that I've recently started doing is, if I delegate something, I explicitly ask them to repeat what they heard, because sometimes you may say something and they may hear something completely different, right? You may want it to be done to a very fine degree of finesse, but they might just understand that they want to put a rough outline together. Or you might just want a rough outline because it's not a very consequential project, but they might spend like 2 days behind that because they're like adding all the details possible, right? So you want to make sure that you're communicating as precisely as possible, and ensure that they're hearing in the right way, and you have that kind of two-way communication where I tell you and then you tell me what you heard, so that I can refine how you think. So the picture in both of our heads should be the same, and that, I think, is will lead to effective delegation, is what I've learned from all the kind of like the principle that I've extracted from all the frameworks, all the blog
yeah.
posts that I've read, is this. I don't know
I love
if
how
you
you
agree with
boiled it
that, or
down. Gosh, you boiled it down so well. You could have written one of those books. Good job. So I love specifically a couple of concepts I want to call out. One of them, that right towards the end, you said that the end result is we both see the same picture in our head. And that's the problem with delegation, is we're dealing with pictures in our heads. And and we can't see what the other picture is. And so we need to give clear ownership, and then we need to test understanding. Like you said, we need to ask. So I actually created a slide one time. I think you'll like this, Yash. I was trying to teach this principle, and I created a slide that had one of those thought bubbles in it. And if I said the word dog to you, it said, "Tell me what a dog looks like." You might ask the question, "Which breed?" Right? But maybe you have a dog at home. I don't know. We have little dogs, and so I would be thinking one thing. You might be thinking something completely different, even though we both use the word dog, right? Yeah, we have to get down to the breed, the size, the like
The
how.
color, the hair, the
Yeah,
everything. Yeah, yeah,
right. So we need the clarity. We need a clear picture in our head that we know exactly what we're seeing, and we can ensure that they're seeing the same thing. And so whatever tools, whatever communication is required, we're not going to prescribe on that. But let's take this principle that Yash just shared. We need to both be seeing the same thing. And once we're sure that we're seeing the same thing, now I can really give that to somebody. Before that, I can't. And it's on me to make sure that it's the same.
correct. Yeah, and then one of the things that I've also that comes to mind is sometimes, as I mean, not as founders, we have really high standards for how things need to be done, or we may be just biased that we want things to be done in the way where how we would do things and not how, because everybody has their own ways of executing, right? So one, you need to be a little bit learn to be a little bit more flexible on what you think the output should be like, as long as the outcome is achieved. So if you think, let's say for example, it's an email marketing project, right? And if you think the email should say something that's in your mind, but they write it in a slightly different way, I've learned to let go of the tendency to fix it and do it myself and just test things. So like let them send that email, right? And if you may be surprised, maybe it has a better open rate, maybe more people respond to it, maybe more people click on it. You never know, right? You may be wrong, because you as one person can't be good at everything, right? If you're in that kind of 1 2 3 5 million stage, you're mostly like an operator in the business, right? So you need to be good at business and the art of delegation and all of that. You may not be the best marketer, so let your marketer do their job, and send that email out and see how it does. And if it doesn't do well, and if you can prove that it doesn't do well with data, then you can intervene and then you test your hypothesis with data. But sometimes, because of our conceptions of how things should be, we tend to kind of impose our ideas on people. And I found myself doing that back in the early days, and not so much right now. But then I learned that letting go and letting data inform what's best, as opposed to my ego telling me that I say this so it's best. I think that has also been a good learning for me.
Yes, ego driven versus data driven, right? Or and the really giving ownership to somebody else to be great in their space and to make mistakes. And maybe your idea was the best one. Who knows? But let's not start from that place. Let's start from the place of giving clear ownership on expectations, and then if you have an idea that you can share, fine. Let them hear your idea, but don't mandate those ideas. Let them own the outcomes as long as they have clear expectations. So anyway, I love what you're saying, Yash. Spot on multiple fronts. Thank you so much for sharing that. If we could shift gears now, I'd like to talk about something that you and Saral might be wrestling with today, because we all have challenges. So, what's something that you're wrestling with in this area of trying to scale the business, trying to grow, uh, and that I can help you with today, and that would be helpful to our listeners.
Hmm. What would be some areas that you would want to cover here? uh,
Yeah, good
yeah.
question. So yeah, for this podcast, it's not so much like ideas for sales and marketing and business development. It's not like that. We might be able to have fun talking about those topics, but it's more related to this transition of I was scrappy founder involved with everything, and now I have to not be that. And so it could be around building your team. It could be around hiring. It could be around meeting rhythms. It could be around getting clear with vision or strategically. It's more the organization development and the leadership challenges that come with a growing team.
Yeah, I think I'll pick on a thread that you just mentioned there and go with hiring, because that's definitely a problem that we face, especially because we are, and I'm sure, I don't know how what the lookup of your, but most businesses are self-funded. But the problem is we're in the tech space. In the tech
Mm,
space, most businesses are not self-funded, right? There's VC money, there's all of that, right? So but we are self-funded, which means we are constrained by capital, especially in a market that's primarily dictated by tech companies overpaying for certain roles, especially engineering, where it
yeah,
becomes very difficult for somebody like us with realistic salary expectations to hire. And like we haven't raised money, so we haven't been covered by TechCrunch or somebody like that, where there's social proof where people can look at, and so on, while we are cash flow positive. So there's that, but you can't see that, right? You can't see that in the media, so it's hard to attract good talent. And that's something that we're wrestling with and still trying to figure out, how we do that. And we've figured some things out that work for us, and I'm happy to share those. But I'm curious what you've seen work generally in this
yeah.
hiring.
I love the issue. It's a great one. And whether you're in the tech space or any other industry, I don't want anybody checking out if they're like, "Well, I'm not in the tech business." At the end of the day, all of us need to be able to source the right talent to achieve the vision that we have for our business, and all of us have scarce resources. There's a limited thing, right? Now, some tech companies who raise lots of money have this feeling of unlimited resources in the short term, but I've seen a lot of those companies burn through those resources or have cost structures that they've built that are not sustainable and puts them in a very weak position later. So you're actually in an advantageous position in one regard, a very important regard, where you have a viable business. Not all tech companies can say that, right? So that's really cool. So let's let's just say, so what if other companies raise money? Fine, let them live in those realities. Right now, we're going to talk about companies who haven't raised money, and it doesn't matter the industry. We all need to find the right talent. We need to be able to pay for that level of talent for our business to succeed and achieve the big visions that we have. So let's start from that place. Um, some principles, Josh, that I would share with you that I again apply to everyone that I can think of. um, what starts with, like, why would people want to come to work for you and not somebody else? And and i i see vision, what I call vision, as a very under leveraged advantage. I think sometimes we, like, you might have a really great vision for what Saral can become. But if your team doesn't see that clearly, almost going back to the delegation conversation, if they don't see the picture that you're seeing, it's really hard for them to get the same excitement as you have. So somehow in our hiring process, we need to get better at communicating, and I'll even use the word marketing, because we get pretty good at this for seeking out our ideal customer profile, our ICP, or our target customer. We need that same approach, that same mentality on our ideal candidate profile, to just change the C from customer to candidate. And that's the way we need to be thinking about how to bring in these people. Now, I want to pause here because I didn't do a good job, Josh. Let's talk about the cost to your business, or what's at stake. We don't even have to use the term cost. What's at stake if you don't find the right people?
Oh, months of, if I don't find if I get the wrong person, that's even worse, because then that's months of hiring down the drain. That's potential, because it'll take a few months until we find out they're not the right person. So a couple months of onboarding, and then you got to find a new person. That's another headache. You kind of lost all the momentum. You didn't deliver on the work that that person was supposed to do, so your customers are upset. So it's such a, I guess, like it's people are, I say this to my team, a company is nothing but the group of people that work every day to make it, because without the people there's no company. And this is, your question is very apt, is that okay, if it's the wrong person, then It's the most impactful part of the business. I would say it's more important than features or systems or SOPs or anything like that, because the people would make the business. If your people, if a feature disappears, you could build it. An SOP disappears, you could rewrite it, you could redo it. If your people disappear, yes, you could get somebody else, but then that whole process is just so, finding the right people is so hard. It's a very, very, I think it's the most important problem that any business solves, is really more than the problem they're solving for their customers, is really getting the people that then solve the problem for your customers, right? I don't know if
Okay.
you agree with that.
Yash, I want you to hang out with me more. Like you always put it in very simple and effective terms. I think you described that very well. So it's not overstating it to say that this is high stakes, right? Like your company's future depends on you being able to get the right people to do this work, right? It's it's as simple as that. So and I love how you talked about, I didn't even really start there, but you talked about the pain of getting the wrong person. Uh, I mean, getting the right people in is essential. And on top of it, you talked about the pain and expense of getting the wrong person in. Not just did I not get the right person in, I actually got the wrong person in, and that's worse, right? So it's awful. The stakes are super high here. One time I asked an audience, like, how much did your worst hire cost you? And they were telling me, hundreds of thousands. And one person told me 2.5 million. And probably the most impactful answer I ever got, Yash, was the guy said, or it might have been a gal, I don't remember, but the person said, 5 years of my life. It cost me 5 years of my life. Think about that. That hits a little bit differently than, I mean, the transaction, the dollars is huge, and we all know the pain of that. But like it took from me 5 years of my life when I got the wrong person. So anyway, the stakes are super high. I don't, we didn't establish that well enough before I started doing my thing and jumping into answers. So this is real, and the pain is excruciating. The costs are tremendous, and the future of the business, the success of the business depends on us getting this right. So that's what's at stake. Now, I said that companies that do this well view their ideal candidates like they would their ideal customers. They get to know them. They're like, who are these people? How do we speak to them in a way that they recognize that we're talking to them? Because with those customers, we get really good at saying, here demographically, and here's the types of businesses they're in, and here's what matters to them, and like we get to know those ideal customers so well so that our copy speaks to them. It's like we're writing love letters to our customers, right? Well, we have to get that good at understanding these ideal candidates for our team so that we can speak to them in a way that their value set responds to it. Like automatically their value set says, Yash is talking to me. Saral is talking to me. I hear it. Um, I don't know if you ever watched Batman or know the Batman reference in popular
Okay.
cinema.
Give me the Batman reference.
Okay, Batman. There's a superhero who, when the city, when the chief of police needs Batman's help, they send out a signal. There's a big beam that goes into the sky with a bat signal, and millions of people see the signal, but there's one person they're trying to talk to, Batman. And when Batman sees the signal, he goes, "That's me. I'm needed." And that's what we have to do with our employment brand, with our signal. We send out, I call it a talent tractor beam, Yash. We got to send out a talent tractor beam. It's the bat signal, and the right people are going to see it and go, "They're calling me. I need to go. I need to respond." So a lot of this is theoretical right now. Let's get a little bit more practical. Okay. When you write a job posting, Yash, this has to be a love letter. This has to be a bat signal to the right person, right? It cannot be a I call it a Frankenstein. This is another American culture thing. I'm sorry. A Frankenstein job posting is like, I looked on a job board. Let's say you're looking for a developer. I need a developer. And so you go to a job board because you don't have time to write one of these from scratch. You don't know what you're doing. You've never written a job posting before. I know you have, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I'm
know.
just
Yep,
talking about, right? So you
yep,
go to a job posting so you
yep.
can leverage somebody else's work, or you go to Chat GPT and say, write me this
Yeah,
job posting.
yep.
So you get something and you're like, okay, I like this part, I like that part, so I'm going to take those two parts, and
Hmm,
from this posting, I like you know the head and the feet from that posting. So
hmm.
and you start pushing together this cobbled this
Output.
Frankenstein job
Yeah,
posting,
yep.
and then we say help wanted, right? We just put it out there, help
Yes,
wanted,
yes.
and we just cross our fingers and we sit back and we hope for the resumes to come flooding
Yeah.
in. That's not it.
I'm
That's
gonna
not the
work.
bat signal,
Yep.
but that's what we do.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got to get clear first on what in our mind that picture. We got to know who it is we're looking for
Hmm.
exactly. And I'm not
Hmm.
talking about just the skills for the job. I'm
Yep.
talking about what this person values, the way
Yep.
they'll show up on our
Hmm.
team, how
Hmm.
they'll interact with the
Hmm.
problem itself, like all of the nuance of
Hmm.
how it how does somebody fit at Saral? Have you
Hmm.
guys done some values work? Do you know what your values are at Saral?
Yes, we do have our core values. Yes.
Okay. If
Yep.
I asked any one of your team members, Josh, if I said, I don't know, developer,
Yep.
uh, Joe,
Yep.
do you know what the values are? Would that person be able to tell me, or would they have to go look
Yeah,
it up?
they'll probably reference a couple of them, but I think they'll have to. We're like midway there. I know we have to like keep re-emphasizing the values and so on.
Okay.
We're midway there, but yeah.
Yeah, and this isn't I'm not trying to embarrass you or put you
Yes.
on the spot, but
Okay. Yeah.
I'm trying to reinforce that when the values become
Yes.
so
They have
integral
to be clear. Yeah.
to who we are, how we do things, how clear we are, you're
Yes.
going to take that same level of clarity and you're going to put it right into this job description that's so
Hmm.
specific to Saral.
Hmm.
Like I would be able to put Saral's job description next to somebody else's and see, oh, this is the Saral one. Your team
Yep.
members would be able to see it and go,
Hmm.
I can
Hmm.
tell this Saral, not because
Hmm.
the logo's on it, not
Yeah.
because the company name's on it, but the
Yes.
language and the values that it reflects. That is so clear in the way
Yep.
that this job posting is put together. I would see it clearly. So
Yes.
anyway, when you're competing on a transactional level for talent with
Hmm.
other tech companies that are funded,
Hmm.
you're not going to win.
Yeah.
Transactional level, when they have deep pockets, they're
Hmm.
just going to keep driving that price up.
Hmm.
But if you could speak to your developers, the ones that fit well at your company
Hmm.
in a way that they connect with,
Hmm.
then the transactional piece has to be enough. Like
Hmm.
you can't offer, not enough. You have
Yes.
to offer enough, but you don't have to win on
Yeah.
the
The
salary
money,
game.
but yep.
Yeah, you got to win on the connection, on the purpose. They got to be excited about the why behind the Sorrel,
Hmm.
and they got to connect with the values of your company,
Hmm.
and then they have to believe
Hmm.
that your business is going to win. They
Hmm.
got to know that Sorrel's on a good trajectory, and that if
Hmm.
I join it because I'm excited about the purpose and I love those values, that
Hmm.
we have a good chance of doing what we set out to do.
Hmm.
That there will
Hmm.
be growth and development opportunity.
Yes.
And so
Yep.
we didn't even
That I
talk.
was going to say that's what we found too, is that we realize very soon, like we can't I mean, now maybe we can a little bit because our revenue has grown, but back in the day when we were just starting, like I could compete. That's not our playing field, right? They have all of the advantage there. What we do have an advantage in is our purpose, is our mission, is our values, is how we show up, is how we hustle, is the problems we care about, right?
Yeah.
And that is what, like, our scrappy culture, a lot of the we actually attract developers who see that beacon of light that we are putting out from these larger companies, who say, hey,
Yeah.
I'm tired of the bureaucracy here. I'm tired of not working. Like, we've had people say in interviews, I work like a couple of hours a day and that's it, and I want to work harder. Like, I want to do more things, I want to learn more. And those are the people we want, right? And they're bored at
Yeah.
those other larger companies, and those are the ones we want.
Yes.
So
Yes,
yeah,
and
totally.
Yash, you just did it intuitively, and maybe not. It sounds like you've been working at this, but
Yes.
you just did the thing, right? You said, "Here's what matters to these people. They
Yep.
don't want to work for a bureaucracy,
Yep.
and they want to be passionately engaged in something that they're excited about and learning from."
Yes.
So, in your copy for this posting,
Hmm.
it needs to say, "Are you tired of
Hmm.
working in a big software company where you're just
Hmm.
another number?" where your
Yeah.
efforts don't really make a difference, right?
Ex-
Like you have to put some of that pain in there, just like you would when you sell software. You got to
mm,
start with pain. You got to
yes.
start with that, right?
Yes.
So anyway, I think you already have all of the right building blocks. You're developing. You're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Putting it together slowly. Getting there. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Yash, this has been so enjoyable for me because of who you are. Thank you for bringing your real self and sharing real lessons learned around delegation,
Of
and
course.
for teeing up a topic that matters to every single business owner. We have to get better at bringing the right people in, and we have to compete sometimes with really big businesses with deep pockets, but we can
We
create
can
a
do it.
very attractive offer for the
Yep.
right people, and we
Correct.
can bring them in.
100%. I agree. This
Yash,
is great.
love what
Yes.
you're doing with Saral. Love the type of person that you are, how you show up, and what you're building is amazing. If people want to learn more about Saral, I know they can go to get Saral, SARAL.com.
Um,
But if is there anything else they should check out, or how would they connect with you on social?
yeah. Yeah. So go to getsaral.com if you want to learn more about what we offer, especially if you run an e-commerce brand. I think it'll be a really great fit. Aside from that, if you want to talk to me, just DM me on LinkedIn or Twitter. Just search my name. I'll pop up, and I'm happy to have a chat. So yeah.
All right, very good. Yash is Yash, Chavan, Chavan,
Correct.
LinkedIn, and yeah, very good. Yash, this was a pleasure.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for being on the episode today.
Thank you for having me, Brett. This was lovely.
Okay, for all of
Yes,
you
sir.
out there listening, please continue to share, like, review, comment, do all that stuff so that we can help as many seven-figure business owners as possible. They're going to hear from amazing entrepreneurs like Yash who are coming here and sharing their real stories. We want to share that and get that out to as many business owners as possible. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast. We'll see you next time.